Right. So tonight we continue our disciple study, and we are discussing Thomas, which is one of the few that we actually know a little bit more about. Um, now, I looked up some different information. Thomas is mentioned a total of 8 times between the four Gospels and Acts. Most of what we learn about him comes from the Gospel of John, and that is, of course, the only place where we actually kind of see a role that Thomas has through
Mhm.
the stories. Um, the New Testament lists all 12 disciples 4 times, once in Matthew, once in Mark, once in Luke, and once in Acts. John never actually does an official like list of all the disciples, but he's, of course, Thomas is definitely mentioned in that.
Yeah.
So here's something really interesting. I don't know if you guys knew. In the 3 times Thomas is mentioned, the Bible notes that he was called Didymus, which is a Greek
Didymus,
word
yeah.
meaning twin, which was often used as a name. Unless your name is Thomas, it may surprise you to learn that the modern name Thomas comes from the Aramaic word Tioma, which means twin.
Didn't
So
know that.
I didn't either.
Thomas doesn't have an actual name in the Bible. He's just known as basically the twin.
The
So
twin.
if you look at the biblical words, the original language, he basically was the twin,
Uh-huh.
which is really weird. Again, I don't know if you guys knew that,
Yeah.
but I thought that was really kind of wild. I don't
No.
get uh, why that was or anything like that. Um, and so if you read John 11:16, John 20:24, and John 21:20, or John 21:2, a literal translation would say the twin called the twin.
Mhm.
So now here's
Yeah.
something interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, most people still call him Thomas, but early traditions called him Judas Thomas because some Syriac manuscripts claimed his real name was Judas. So he would have been Judas, who was also a twin, which would have been more of
Mhm.
an accurate translation of everything. So, again, just a really kind of, there's some really interesting things. We never know who
Yeah.
the twin is. He's never mentioned anywhere. And
Could have been a girl too.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
We
And
Sure
really
then they
could
don't
have.
wouldn't
know.
have mentioned her. Hmm.
Now, of course, if you believe in the Gnostic Gospels, there is the book of Thomas, which here's an interesting one. According to the book of Thomas, which is the Gnostic Gospel, which is not an accepted book of the Bible, Thomas claimed to be the twin of Jesus.
Really?
Yeah. Now, again, the
Okay.
Gnostic Gospels are not, they're not canon for the Bible, and so we know that that's not accurate. It's already been proven
Right.
as not a valid gospel or anything like that. But I just
Yeah.
had to share that because I thought that was really kind of wild. It's kind of weird. Um,
Yeah.
so let's go back here just a little bit. And of course, he was known as Doubting Thomas. Of course, we all know that. Now, the thing is, when we call him Doubting Thomas, it's because, well, he doubted, right? I mean,
Right.
that's why we call it. But if you think about it, he really wasn't the only one that doubted. He was really
No.
the only one that really voiced it.
Right.
He was the only one
Hmm.
that really stepped up and said, I can't really believe this. And he wanted proof, which in my mind, the other disciples did too. Again, he was the only one that said anything, though. He
Yeah.
Right.
was the only
Right.
one that stepped forward and says, well, I need to have some proof. Now, of course, at this point, Jesus shows up, because Thomas had said, until I stick my finger in his hands and
Yes.
into his side, I'm not going to believe. And all of a sudden, Jesus walks through the wall, shows up, and says, well, here you go. Now, of course, the gospel never says he actually did that. He just
Right.
immediately falls to his knees and said, my Lord, my God. He's like, okay, never mind. I don't need to reach in. But again, I think he kind of gets a bad rap by calling him Doubting Thomas.
Mhm.
He was, maybe Vocal Thomas would be a
Yeah.
more apt term for him, because that's again, he was just the one who said it out loud. He was the one that was willing
Right.
to make the statement, hey, you guys don't believe, I don't believe either. So we need to have some sort of proof that will let us connect with Jesus, to really prove to us
Prove
that
it.
he
Yeah.
is who he is. And I don't, again, it's just one of those things we just like with Judas, he kind of gets a bad rap, but it's really no different than any of us. It's a very valid perception, I think.
Was there other references biblically for twins?
Well, I mean,
Seems like there was a couple of
well, you have oh gosh,
Jacob.
Jacob and Esau. Of course, those were two that are especially mentioned, significant ones. And for some
Seems
reason,
like there was a couple others.
yeah, but it doesn't seem like this was never really acknowledged as twin type significance.
Yeah.
It's only by looking at the original language that we even know that he was referenced as a twin. So it wasn't a significant part of the story in any way, shape, or form. We have no idea whether Thomas's twin was a male or female. We don't know that. We don't know whether his twin ever came to Christ. We don't know really anything about Thomas other than a few short verses. We know nothing about his family. So we don't even know what career Thomas had. Of course, there's
Right.
where was it? I had it in my notes here somewhere. Yeah. So in the Gospel of John, it doesn't say he was a fisherman, but he does go fishing with the other guys.
Okay.
So it never says he was a fisherman, which it seemed like the other ones, they made a point of saying they were fishermen. But that would probably been more significant because of the fact that they were fishing when Jesus came and collected them, basically. So we don't know really how Thomas really connected to Jesus at all, what that first interaction looked like, or anything like that.
Of
Again,
course, Jesus said, "I'll make you fishers of men." So even Matthew, the tax collector, I don't know that he would have said to him, "I'll make you fishers of
Right.
men,"
but
so.
and again, maybe he wasn't a fisherman, and yet maybe he worked in the fish market or something like
Right,
that.
right.
We really don't know. It would not have been uncommon to have that particular profession in that area.
Oh, yes.
Because there a lot of the economy would have dwelt within the waters and things like that. So anything connected to that would have been significant, and it would have
Yep.
made sense for him to at least have known what fishing was and what it meant, and the significance of it when Jesus said, "I will make you fishers of men." He would have understood that. So
Would the average person gone fishing for themselves, like recreational fishing to feed their
well,
family?
I don't think recreational. Would they have
Okay.
potentially have gone fishing for food? Maybe, but I would think by fishing being an industry at that time, I don't know if they would have really been able to catch anything. Maybe I'm
Oh, yeah.
wrong, but I'm thinking it. You know, if you go to a place where the business is focused around fishing, it's very rare for you to see nowadays even somebody going fishing and really catching much of anything because it's all focused on the fishing boats and the bigger organizations and companies.
Yeah.
So probably, I mean, it's certainly possible, but more than likely, if he wasn't a fisherman, he purchased his fish at the market. Would have
Yeah.
been more likely, in my opinion, in my belief. I believe so. So
Yeah, he could have known these guys and they
right,
could have sold him
Sure.
fish too. So,
right, exactly, and that's absolutely true. Um, that's why I'm almost wondering if he was more of a worked in the market or did something like that rather than being
yeah.
directly involved in fishing. So
Uh-huh.
I
Do
guess
we know if Thomas led anybody to the Lord? Do we know?
well, it doesn't say anything in particular that I was able to find. It
Okay.
doesn't reference it, but that doesn't mean anything. One thing I did pick up uh, that when Jesus learned that Lazarus had died, he tells the disciples that he's going to go visit the family and everything like that. And the disciples try to talk him out of it. Uh, and then Thomas says in John 11:16, then Thomas said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. Because remember, the last time that they went to Judea, the people rose up, they were trying to put Jesus to death. They were trying to stone
Right,
him to death.
right.
So
Yeah.
Thomas was the one that stepped up and said, okay, he wants to go. We know what happened last time. Hey, you know what? If he's going to go and risk being put to death, I say we go with him and risk it ourselves. So,
Yeah.
Thomas almost had a leadership role here. Almost had a moment of, okay, this is what we need to do, guys.
Right.
No matter what the risk may be,
Right.
we say we're with Jesus. Let's show it. Let's have proof that we are with him. So then in John 14, 1-14. Now, again, John is the only place it seems like Thomas really has a role. He's really referenced out. So, so this is after predicting he was going to be betrayed, after he's already said Peter is going to not deny him. Jesus tells the disciples that he's going to go and prepare a place for him. Well, Thomas says, Lord, in John 14:5, Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? And then, of course, this sets up John 14:6-7. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. So this is one of the places where, again, Thomas was significant in that he brought out this quote from Jesus that is used time and time and time again. And so he was, again, asking the question. He was the one saying the same thing that everybody else was thinking. He was just the only one to man up and say it. Okay, you're going to prepare a place for us. Where are you going? We don't get that.
Yeah.
Because
Where you
remember,
going?
in general, these guys were not.
He showed he's vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah, he showed.
He showed his vulnerability.
He did. And he asked the questions everybody else was asking, and it's almost
Was thinking.
he was thinking, and it's almost like Thomas represents a lot of us, because he's asking the questions we would want to ask at the same time. Well, okay, where are you going then? We don't get that, because even though Jesus spoke in parables time and time again, which made things way easier to understand, this was still a very, very new concept for the disciples and everybody else to understand, because Jesus was speaking about God in a completely different perspective than the Jewish people had ever understood before. And so he was talking about, I'm going to heaven, I am going to be with the Father, and they're like, what are you talking about? Or actually, Thomas is the one that stepped up and said, what do you mean by that? Okay, we believe you. We just want to make sure we're clarifying what the heck you're talking about.
We understand.
We want to make sure we understand. And who knows, maybe Thomas totally got it, but he wanted to make sure the other disciples did too.
Well,
That could very well be.
Yeah.
Because again, we have to remember that in general, most of them would have not been incredibly educated. I'm not saying stupid. I'm just saying they wouldn't have necessarily been as educated. And so maybe Thomas was stepping up for them and saying, I kind of get it, but, maybe for the rest of the guys, you can explain. I don't know. And maybe he was in the same boat. Maybe everybody was in the same boat. They just didn't get it. But he was asking the questions. He was clarifying. He was making sure everything was spelled out in a way that everybody could get. And in essence, he was asking the questions for us too, because we need to have these answers.
Yes.
We need to have this understanding so we can better clarify for ourselves and to be able to move forward. So I think, again, Thomas is one of those guys that is really saying everything that needs to be said. So I'm going to go ahead and read John 20, 24 to 29. Now Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands? Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." And again, this is, again, speaking to us, because we don't get to see Jesus in the physical form like Thomas and the disciples. We don't get that opportunity.
Yes.
And so we are the ones who believe but have not seen. And so, again, Thomas is kind of a conduit for us, in my mind. He's somebody we think through. He's the one who brings out these statements that we need to know, that we need to hear, so that we ourselves can understand it better and be a kind of sound mind, put our souls within the comfort of knowing that it's possible. We need to believe without seeing. And that can be really tough, I think.
But it made it clear when Jesus said, "Thomas, reach your finger here," etc. And Thomas answered and said, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said, he answered Thomas directly, because he had doubted before.
Right.
The other disciples, we assume, got it since they had seen Jesus. But now he's answering him, point blank. He's calling him by name. And that's very direct.
And again, we have to remember that, as we saw in the scripture, Thomas wasn't with them for some reason. So they had a leg up on him already.
Right.
And so were they saying the exact same thing before Jesus showed up to them? I think so. I think they were saying the exact same thing,
Yeah.
but they already had proof. They had seen him. And Thomas is like, well, you guys saw him. I didn't. I need to be able to see him to settle my own mind, my own heart. I need to be there and see him myself. And so he gets a different opportunity to be called out. And I think it would have been interesting to see or to hear some of the conversation that the rest of the disciples had before Jesus showed up to them. What were they saying? How were they responding to this? And things of that nature. So,
Right.
all right. So, any thoughts on any of this? Because although we know a little more about Thomas, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And it's in verse 30.
Yes.
Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples.
Yes.
In the presence of his disciples. And so this was another sign or a miracle. I think John, the book of John uses signs as opposed to miracles a lot of times. So it's written for us. It's written for us to see,
I think so.
to be visible to us.
Yeah, so I agree. So that's why it's so important, as you pointed out. I think that's why it says signs instead of miracles, because miracles doesn't necessarily mean it was visible. And John is making a point of saying this was visible. It was seen by people.
Right.
And I think that's something that kind of stands out.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Now, what do we know life? Do we know much about Thomas's end of life?
Well, that was going to be my next thing. If nobody else had anything, that was going to be my next thing. Alice, do you got anything?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Because, like I said, we don't know. Thomas, we know more about than some of the other ones, but we still don't know a whole heck of a lot about him. So, this is not quite as full of one. So, the Acts of Thomas, which again is a Gnostic gospel, we don't really hold true to it. But according to that, he was martyred in India, where he was stabbed with spears. Syrian Christian tradition specifies Thomas was martyred in Milioporos on July 3rd, 72 AD, noting that he was killed with a spear. An early ecclesiastical calendar entry reads, July 3, St. Thomas, who was pierced with a lance in India. So, in India. So in my mind, that means that's where he was preaching the gospel, was in India. I mean, I guess that's, I don't think he was there on vacation.
What I had looked up said he was the patron saint of India.
Yes, he was. Yep, that was my next piece on my notes. Yep, he was a patron saint of
India. That's quite a ways.
Yeah.
Well, and so it stands
from
out
Jerusalem.
Right. So if he was martyred there, he was obviously preaching something that was not accepted in that area.
Right.
So I would assume that, he was preaching the gospel. And if he was made the saint of India, that means he was really bringing the gospel there, and it was significant to the area, to the region that he came to spread the gospel. And I think it's really, again, pointing to the fact that Thomas was skeptical. Jesus never said, how dare you, or anything like that. He showed up and said, okay, well, you're skeptical. Let's deal with it. He does kind of reprimand him a little bit by saying, well, you believe because you've seen, but blessed are those who
Have
believe
not
and do not
seen yet believe.
Yeah.
but he never really reprimands him. He really doesn't slam him down or anything. And so I think that's it reminds me of God and Gideon, where Gideon was wanting to put out the fleece, and God never reprimanded him for it. And I think this is kind of the modern day. Thomas was the modern day Gideon for that time period, in that he wasn't saying, I don't believe. He said, I just need to fully understand it. I need a little bit more confirmation. He never said right out, I don't believe he came back. He's just saying, I need some proof he came back. He never said, I don't think he ever can come back. And I think that's significant, in that he again never said, I don't believe it or I will never believe it. He said, I just want to clarify it. I want to have some proof, because I don't want to share a falsehood. Again, I'm kind of putting myself in Thomas's shoes, and that's what I would want to have some proof. I'm not saying that I don't believe it. I just need to have some proof.
Well, but by the same token, how many other people were in that upper room? And Thomas is the only one that got a second chance at believing. Thomas was the only one not there, I think. Or at least so. That's what it indicates, kind of.
Yeah.
He didn't believe his brothers. Now that to me is a little unusual in itself.
But they were the same ones who did not believe the women after the tomb.
Yeah.
I mean, the disciples didn't believe them, and yet they had traveled forever.
Yeah, but they were women. I mean, that's
but
kind of.
I get that. I truly do. But by the same token, I think Jesus had rewrote the gender roles in a way.
The what? The gender roles? In
that he didn't consider women insignificant.
Right. Agree.
And I would say that for him, if the women told him something, he would have believed them. And I would have thought within those short 3 years that Jesus would have tried to embody that in the rest of the disciples, to understand that male, female, it doesn't matter. We're all God's children, and we should all be, kind of together with that. I agree with you. I see what you're saying. But I also see where they doubted. And again, in my mind, I think we have to look at what did the disciples do after Jesus's resurrection, or after his death on the cross? What did they all do? They all scattered.
Oh, okay.
And yet, who told them he was going to come back? Jesus himself. He said, I will be coming back in 3 days. Well, none of them believed him. So the only reason the rest of the disciples had, believed was because they saw Jesus first. Thomas just wasn't with them. And so I don't think he was the only one that got a second chance. I think he was the only one that got called out personally. The other ones had a second chance to believe too.
Okay.
I think they're all in the same boat.
Okay, Acts 1:13.
Okay.
Let's see, how many? Acts 1:13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 11 disciples listed there. So they were all there together in the upper room. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say. They were all there, and then all of a sudden, at least Thomas was gone.
Right. Correct. And we don't know what happened. We don't know why he wasn't there. It's never said. We have no idea. But yeah, for some reason, Thomas was not with the rest of them when Jesus showed up the first time. And so I agree with you too. Why didn't Thomas believe him? But again, I would look at it also from another side of things. How many of them would have believed that Judas was going to betray them? I mean, it's you know, maybe in Thomas's mind, he's thinking, well, one of us is already turned against us. God forbid there be more of them or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just trying to give Thomas the benefit of the doubt, just because he's really no different than the rest of us. The rest of us has dealt very much the same situations where, oh, I cannot believe this. Well, there's 100 people, there's 1,000 people, there's 1,000,000 people saying this. Well, I still can't believe it. It's really no different than the pandemic. You know, we have scientific proof. We have people attesting to the severity of it, and yet we have how many thousands of people who are like, well, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Even though we have scientific proof, we have millions of people who are attesting to the severity of it. We have thousands of people who have died, and yet conspiracy theorists are saying, well, it's just fake. Or, you know, they're even family members. I mean, this is dividing families, which is no different than the disciples. Just because 1,000 people say it doesn't mean it's actually true, right? I mean, that's the mentality. I don't believe it. If this one person I'm putting all my trust in, or two people or whatever, I'm putting my trust in, even though they've been proven wrong, if they say what I want to hear, I'm going to believe them. And you know, you wonder, Thomas may very well have been saying, I really want to believe you guys. I really do. But I'm just scared. I want to have some actual proof. I want to see it for myself. So I guess that's the way I look at it. I've been trying to do better about looking at things from both sides. And so this is one where I really try to put myself on both sides. And as I mentioned last Sunday, you know, it was the same idea with Judas. I've really been trying to kind of sympathize with him to an extent, because he does get this incredibly bad rap. But, you know, look at some of the things that happened and some of the significance of his actions. I mean, it was necessary. So I don't know. What were you going to say, Alice? I'm sorry.
I had going back to Thomas and Judas. Judas betrayed, and he's probably thinking, well, how many of the others are going to do the same thing by telling me that Jesus is back?
Right.
And
yeah.
He could have really just, like you said, needed proof that he was there.
Right.
And the others weren't just spoofing him.
Right. Right. And again, we look at Gideon, where God never reprimanded Gideon for wanting to have proof. No. He really didn't. Because Gideon, I think one of the significant things about Gideon and Thomas was the acknowledgement that they were saying, okay, I am not saying in any way that this is not true. I just want to verify. I just want to make sure. I don't want there to be any doubt in any shape or form that there is some falsehood. And I think that was the
that Satan's not involved somewhere.
Exactly. And that in my mind, that's the difference between some of the others that were actually out and out saying, well, there's no way this is true. Well, they were saying no matter
Right.
what, basically, I'm not going to believe this. And Thomas never said that. He said, I'm more than happy, I'm more than willing to believe it. I just want to clarify. I just want to make sure. And I think that's the difference. I just think that's really the biggest
Yeah.
difference. So, any other thoughts on any of that? All right. Well, if nobody else has any thoughts, we can go ahead and finish up for the evening. None for next week. We'll be meeting the week after. Christian has a band concert, so we're going to go to that next Wednesday. So that's why we're so. And I always look forward to the concert, so I don't want to miss that. So let me pray, and we'll go out from here. Lord God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for clarifying for us, because very often we need clarification. We need verification. We need to make sure that we are sharing the truth, that we are loving the truth. We are loving you as we should love you. Please continue to guide us and direct us in all your ways. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Well, I will see you guys sometime. So have a
Okay.
good night.
Good evening.
See ya.